And today is Bitcoin is Freedom Day. And so with that, let's go ahead and do the intro and then I'm gonna dive into the show.
Here we go.
Let's get started.
All right, folks, let's have a conversation today. This is going to be fun. And again, welcome to my gorgeous living room. Don't you guys like it? After I get done, I'm going to take a dive in the pool back there behind me. It's a great day here in Texas. So today's show is going to be all about the boomers. And I know that you guys love the boomers. Bitcoin love boomers, right? Because boomers are the fun generation. They're not the crazy generation of the millennials. They're not the silent folks because they're a little bit loud. But they're a very, very important generation, and I'm going to at least try to explain why that is, okay? So before I start talking about the boomers, I want to go over some metrics and some points that I think you guys will absolutely enjoy and love. So as you guys know, I talk a lot about the price of Bitcoin because I believe that that's where we can count and we can see what's really going on around this space. So if you remember last time I did this show, it didn't look so good for Bitcoin month over month, right? It looked a little scary. It was down about 2,000. Guess what, folks? We're back. We're up 2,000 this time. So listen, at the beginning of the year, Bitcoin was trading roughly about $23,000, right? That was on 29th of January. Then we get to May, and Bitcoin's looking really good at $27,000, 745. And by this time, right now, the 29th of June, we're looking at $30,000, about 500. When I put this together, we were a little bit higher than we are now. But the point is the same. Zoom out, right? If you zoom out, you're going to see that everything is okay. Listen, if you bought Bitcoin a month ago, you're up almost $3,000. And if you bought Bitcoin at the beginning of the year, you're up almost $7,000. How great is it to be in Bitcoin? It is. It's amazing. Now, the Bitcoin dominance has increased. We're sitting about 50.4%. ETH is looking about 19%. And that's being pulled from CoinMarketCap. And of course, all of my historical data is being pulled from Yahoo Finance. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. I believe I'm still with you guys. Let's take a look at our metrics and indicators, okay? This is what I want you guys to look at, and this is just from this week alone, but we saw the fear and greed index go from 55 to 54, and that's a really good sign. We don't want to see Bitcoin's fear, well, it's not really Bitcoin's crypto fear and greed index, but we don't want to see that index go all the way up to like 70 or 80. That causes us problems. So when it's around 50, that's a sweet spot. That's a great time to buy Bitcoin, great time to accumulate Bitcoin. Listen, if it dropped below that and people are really fearful, you want to dive in some more. Now, in addition to that, the highest weekly close of 2023 was this past week. That's right. That's the highest close that we've had. We've had the highest market dominance since 2021. And we all know what happened back then. That's right. Terra Luna. Problem. That's when the market collapsed. And then we've got the biggest bet since that collapse as well. And when I talk about the biggest bets, we're talking about the futures market, and we're going to see some more information about that later in the show. Bitcoin held on exchanges. Folks, it's the lowest it's been in 5 years. I hope all of these metrics are starting to draw a story for you because this is really, really important. Correlation with the stock market has fallen to a 3-year low, and Bitcoin short-term holders, here's part of the problem, they might sell at 33K, but we're not at 33K yet. So keep the party going, as I say, right? Now, let's take a look at some of the big news of the week. Big news of the week, of course, the biggest news probably of this year is BlackRock signaling and filing for an ETF, a spot Bitcoin ETF. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this. Is it really an ETF? Is it a trust? Is it going to be like Grayscale? You know, what's the ins and outs? There's a lot of great podcasts that I put on my brief throughout the week, which you can find on my website, but I'll just give you the fat and skinny. Listen, from what I've been able to hear from all these podcasts, reading all these articles, it looks like this BlackRock ETF has a good chance to get approved, and I believe it's going to be good for the market overall. We've got some FTX drama as well, talking about the 7 billion clawbacks that they're having, as well as FBF talking about his criminal charges, trying to get them dismissed, and that did not happen. Got Prime Trust, they're in trouble now. Why? Because they can't even custody people's crypto, and that was their sole job, was to custody crypto. And now it looks like they've lost keys to the Bitcoin. That's a problem. That's a big problem. So then I saw a tweet and someone was talking about, looks like custody is hard to do. No, custody is not hard to do. If you use Unchained Capital, they make it super easy for you to custody your own Bitcoin. So you should check them out. MicroStrategy, that was big news. Smashing the buy button, buying another 12,000 Bitcoin, the most he's bought since he's been buying Bitcoin. This is absolutely ridiculous that now MicroStrategy has over 150,000 Bitcoin. If that's not conviction, I don't know what conviction looks like. Now, some of you might be asking, is Michael Saylor Satoshi Nakamoto? I mean, how does this guy gets it at this level? Well, if you listen to any of his interviews, he talks about this. Michael Saylor is a very smart, I forget the word I'm trying to pull up right now. He's a shrewd investor, right? He wants to put his money in the right place, and he wants to take as much advantage of the system as he can. Putting money in land is a problem. You can't move the land. Putting money in assets like yachts and things like that, they can be seized. Bitcoin is unseizable for the most part. It's unconfiscatable, as Tom Vay says, right? It's the only decentralized censorship-resistant technology we have. So when that light bulb went off in his head, he's slamming money into Bitcoin as much as he possibly can. Should you do the same? That's up for you to make that decision. We had KuCoin talking about implementing KYC. And of course, a lot of people in the crypto industry was not happy about that. But as I said on Twitter, listen, guys, every SEX, that's a centralized exchange, is going to have regulation. They're going to have KYC. I know DEXs won't, but SEXs will. Got it, SEXs. Okay, $7.8 billion has been lost in crypto to Ponzi schemes and pyramids. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. $7.8 billion. People, stop doing bad things with crypto. All right, let's take a look at what people are saying this week. And we've got a lot about what people are saying this week and some really good voices that you should be listening to. And I always tell people to do that. Read, watch, and listen with me because you should. Now, Raoul Pal and CoinShares both believe a tidal wave of institutional capital is coming into crypto as a result of the BlackRock ETF filing. We know after BlackRock filed, we then got a slew of other people filing. Valkyrie filed, ARK had already filed. They're actually ahead of BlackRock. You got Fidelity, who just came out today and said that they're filing, right? Bitwise, there's tons of people that are now filing for this spot Bitcoin ETF. And ARK amended their filing to say that they will have that surveillance component that BlackRock has. So yes, this is going somewhere. Tone Vays has said that he believes Bitcoin's going to rally to 34K. I'm on par with him. As a matter of fact, over on WooBits, I have two predictions. One for tomorrow, saying that we'll be over 31K. And at the end of July, I said we'd be over 32K. So Tone Vay says 34. I'm with you, Tone. I think we go north from here. Bernstein says compliant ETFs are coming. This is what BlackRock is bringing, a compliant ETF. Bernstein believes that's going to be the case. ARK Invest says BlackRock ETFs is a turning point, and I believe that is true. ARK Invest has been ahead of this game. They were ahead of BlackRock. They know what's going on with ETFs. Big stuff's going on. As you can see, the news is all around ETFs, right? All of the voices are talking ETFs. That was the biggest news of the century, I think. Jeremy Allaire said the ETF will be approved. As you know, Jeremy Allaire is the CEO of Circle, so he said that it'll get approved. Plan B believes we're going to have an accelerated bull market. A lot of people have given Plan B crap. I've given Plan B crap. Gave him so much crap, he blocked me on Twitter. But the point is that Plan B's stock flow model was a little flawed. Will we see a lot more upside? I believe so. Will it be accelerated? That's a different story. Fairlead Strategies says $31.9 thousand is long-term bullish. If we get above 31.9, it's off to the races. And I've told a lot of people that this is why I made my prediction at the end of July to be 32,000. I believe if we can cross 32,000 by the end of July, guys, I think we might see all-time highs by the end of the year. Chris Bernstein says that the bottom is in. Of course the bottom is in. The bottom is in at 15.7, guys. Anybody talking about 12K, 10K, 8K, tell them to go check their temperature. They might need to go to the doctor. Michael Saylor says Bitcoin to 1 million, right in contrast with what all the naysayers, all the doomsdayers. Michael Saylor believes that Bitcoin is going to go to 1 million. Now, a lot of people have said that, and on Twitter, I posted a whole little diatribe about all the people that have called for $1 million Bitcoin. If you remember, it was our good friend John McAfee that said Bitcoin was going to 1 million by 2020, or he eat his own thing on TV. That didn't happen. You got Jesse Lund. Remember, he was from IBM. That didn't happen. You had Mark Yusko, who says in the long term, still yet to see. Right? And there was the weird guy, I forget his name now, frizzy hair all over the place. He said $1 million by 2020. Didn't happen. Don't listen to these $1 million predictions, people. Let's get to 100K before we worry about $1 million. You got Joseph Lubin, who says that ETH is in fact a commodity. And RFK Jr. came out today and said Bitcoin is a bulwark against totalitarianism. All right, folks, let's give a little love to our wonderful sponsors, and that's called Roundly X. So listen, I know that I'm not a great singer, but I'm going to do it anyway, because every card you connect with Roundly X, every swipe you take with Roundly X, every single day, every purchase you make, you'll be stacking sats. Listen, if you use code Bitcoin is Freedom, you'll get $15 when you use that code. So get started and go over to roundlyx.com. That's the best way to stack sats, folks. Okay, let's get back to the show. All right, let's get to this question that I talked about, Bitcoin and boomers. First of all, let's talk about who is a boomer, all right? So when you look at boomers, this is anyone who's born between the years of 1946 and 1964. Right now, you'd be 59 years old to 77 years old. Here's another interesting stats about these boomers, these people that we call boomers. Okay, boomer. Highest net worth. These people have got money, right? And they control 74% of all investable assets. This is where the money is. But what you need to know is that all boomers aren't created equal. We spend a lot of time talking about trying to orange pill Congress, trying to talk to politicians about Bitcoin. Really, we should be talking to the boomers. Why? They're the ones with the money. If we can convince the boomers and orange pill them to pull their money away from all the other assets they have and shift it over to Bitcoin, like Michael Saylor, can you imagine what would happen? It would be crazy. Now, as I said, all boomers are not created equal. Before the show, I tweeted to Gary Leland, which I should have talked about this way before last week when I came up with the show idea. I should have had Gary Leland on. He's a boomer, but he's tuned in. Guess who else is a boomer? RFK Jr. is a boomer, and he gets it. If he becomes president, he's talking about advocating for this asset like you've never seen before. We've got a lot of boomers, and if you think about it, a lot of the folks that you listen to, the Mark Yuskos, the Greg Foss, all of these guys are boomers, and they get it. So anybody who's saying like boomers are tuned out, they don't get Bitcoin, I think boomers do get Bitcoin. Unfortunately, I think boomers have a big fear of Bitcoin. And so that's what I want to cover now. Or what are some of the fears of boomers, right? So, and I think I'm still with you guys. If I'm not, we might be having technical difficulty. I think things might have gotten cut off. Let me find out if that's the case. Okay, we're back. Okay, so the fear of boomers. Here are some of the fear. The fears of boomers, the fear of Bitcoins. We do have fear of boomers too, but let's look at the fears of Bitcoin. Fears of Bitcoin from boomers are the following: environmental degradation. We hear this through the ESG narrative. Today, the Texas Blockchain Council, Lee Bratcher, did clear this up a little bit and said that the ESG narrative group is not really against Bitcoin. They're coming around, they're getting it. So, but boomers, when you talk to boomers about Bitcoin, they look at the environmental degradation that mining Bitcoin is causing the environment, which is not true. Why? Because if you look at the global energy usage, Bitcoin is 1%. And the majority of that is renewable. So this environmental, it's not true. So if you're talking to a boomer and they bring that up, tell them no, no can do. Point them to the Bitcoin Mining Council that Michael Saylor runs, and they'll give them all the scoop. Then you got some boomers that think, oh, it's just magical internet money. Who wants to play with magical internet money? Nobody, right? That's what boomer says. Millennials and everybody behind them is like, this is the next big thing. This is money. This is store of value. This is, safe haven, right? That's not what boomers think. They probably look to gold, and they probably look to real estate, and they probably look to equities. Then some think it's a gambling casino. Oh my goodness, you're just gambling with your money. You're going to lose it all. See what happened with FTX. See what happened with the C5 collapse. See what happened with all this Terra Luna stuff. You're just gambling. Then they look at the fraud that happens within Bitcoin. Again, SB fraud, not FB Freeman, Sam Bankman-Fried. It's SB fraud. So when we look at it from that perspective, boomers, again, are fearful of this asset. And then they believe it's only used by scammers and drug dealers on the dark web. Okay. Well, let's talk about what Bitcoin really is. Here's what it says from the Bitcoin white paper. And again, if you haven't read the white paper, I want you guys to give the white paper a second look. I did it in preparation for the show, and a lot of things came to mind, and I'm going to probably trigger some of you, and I don't mean to, but I'm just telling you what I'm reading. Bitcoin, what is it? It's a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash. Would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Satoshi Nakamoto. This is from the very beginning, the excerpt of the Bitcoin white paper. And everything that follows after that talks about a couple points. How we ever got to where we are talking about Bitcoin today, honestly, I don't know. But because this white paper truly is talking about creating a system where you can spend money on the internet. This is what Bitcoin was created for. All of this stuff about the banks and going against the government and also, that was none of what was in the Bitcoin white paper. Now, I know they're cypherpunks, and I know that they have a proclivity to be against the government, but the Bitcoin white paper doesn't say a word about the government. It only talks about being able to spend money on the internet because there's no way to do that reliably. And the proof of work allows that to happen because it solves the double spend problem. I can't spend $1 on the internet, take the dollar back and spend it again. I can't do a double spend because that's what proof of work is for. The whole Bitcoin white paper is about this. Everything about all this other stuff, it actually, after reading it again, I'm like scratching my head going, how did we ever get to this place to where we're making this thing to be what it is? So, here are the sections of the Bitcoin white paper. If you don't believe me, it starts off with an introduction, and there he's talking about this whole double spending problem. Because one of the things that happens, fraud happens within the internet because someone can say, oh, I didn't get it, I need my money back, or oh, by the way, I don't want this, I want my money back. And these chargebacks, and there's a business, Gary, and I'm going to forget Gary's name, but he has a company, Chargebacks 911. This is their whole goal, is to make sure companies are not being frauded out of their money by people doing chargebacks. So the introduction is about a lot of that. Then it talks about how you actually have transactions, talks about timestamp servers, proof of work, the network, the incentive system, the reclaiming disk space. Oh, and talk about the incentive system. Never once in the Bitcoin white paper was it talking about going to the moon and Lambos and all this other stuff. A lot of this, I think, we created just because that's sort of the way it evolved. But the Bitcoin white paper wasn't about all of that. Reclaiming disk space, simplifying payment verifications, combining and splitting value, privacy, and in it, it does talk about privacy, but from the perspective of that it's synonymous. As long as you don't attach your name to those transactions, then all they see is that transactions were happening on the internet, but no one knows who that is. They can see the transactions, but they don't know who. And in the white paper, it talks about why it's important that every time you do a transaction, a new address is created, because with the new address, it makes it harder for you to be able to figure out and go back and look at those who was running those transactions. Talks about calculations, then talks about the conclusion. Please do me a favor, read the white paper and encourage these boomers to read the white paper. They can do it and you can do it. It's going to help us not make this thing to be something so crazy that boomers are fearful of it. Now, the next thing I have to ask, since this is the Bitcoin is Freedom show, we know what Bitcoin is, but what's freedom? Well, looking at Wikipedia, freedom is the power or right to act, speak, and change as one wants without hindrance or restraint. This is why Bitcoin gives you freedom. People say, Paul, well, how does it give me the right to act? Because Bitcoin gives you the resources you need to take action in your everyday life. It is actually speech. That is what it is. It is code. It is speech. This is why they cannot shut it down. You cannot shut down speech. And change as one wants. Bitcoin encourages you to do a lot of changing in your life. Why? Because it makes you change the way you think, the way you act, the way you respond, the way you deal with people. Bitcoin is freedom for those reasons. And a lot of people will get caught up in this being against the government stuff. And I get it. I get it. I'm not trying to trigger you. And I understand how the government can cause a problem. But at the end of the day, focus on yourself and focus on stacking sats, and you'll have all the freedom in the world that you want. And that's what the boomers need to realize. Now, let's look at some considerations. Because as I thought about this, and you have to agree with me, right? Because the first thing we talked about boomers were what? They have an incredible high net worth, and they control 74% of the investable assets. If that's the case, and again, not all boomers are created equal, those boomers that are having high net worth and are actually controlling 74% of the assets, do you honestly think they need Bitcoin? Most people right now will probably kill me. They're probably throwing swords at me, leaving all kinds of crazy comments. But the reality is that they don't, guys. Just admit it. Listen, Warren Buffett, with respect to him, 1 foot on earth, 1 foot in the grave. The guy's got more money than God. He does not need Bitcoin. There's nothing Bitcoin's going to do for him that he needs. People say, yeah, well, not yet. Well, I get it, yes. And for the reasons that I have on the slide. Now, a boomer is someone that was 50, that was, what did I say? It was 46 to 64. Right, there you go. They're 59 to 77. If you're 59 years old and you're a man, you have a 21-year life expectancy left on Earth. And if you're a female, it's 24. Okay, so the next 20 years, if you live to be that long, what will Bitcoin do for you, and how can Bitcoin help you? And it depends on where you are on the scale. Listen, if you are someone who's barely scraping by, your concern really isn't Bitcoin. Why? You don't have any money to put in Bitcoin. You're not even saving actively. You're not actively saving. So if a person is not actively saving and you're a boomer and you don't have any resources, Bitcoin probably is not going to do a thing for you. Your problem or your challenge is going to be generating revenue, generating income to live on. Hopefully you can produce more than you need. That way you can put it into Bitcoin. You need disposable income to put into Bitcoin. Savings. Mark Yusko says that Bitcoin is the best savings asset on the planet. So if you're in that category, Bitcoin's probably not going to help you. If you're middle class, you're someone that's got a decent job, making some good money, you've got some money in savings, got some 401ks, got some stock assets, things like that. Yes, Bitcoin probably can help you because you can move your money, your resources, your assets over into Bitcoin, and it will protect that asset going forward. And for the reasons that I'll put the next 2 bullet points, it'll protect it from inflation and it'll protect it from government control. Moving your assets into Bitcoin is going to help. Now, if you're part of that 1%, you're way up there, high net worth, for the most part, it's icing on the cake, right? That's all it is. It's just icing on the cake. Bitcoin's going to make you feel a little better about what you got, to be honest. This is Michael Saylor, though. It also still will protect his resources from inflation and government control. And that's where I really see Bitcoin, that signal for the boomers to really get the message across is like, listen, inflation right now is at 4%. If we kept inflation at 4%, that's hard to get almost anywhere. There's nobody that hardly gives you a guaranteed 4%. And even if you got 4%, that just means your money's keeping up with inflation. You're not losing, you're not winning. You're not doing anything. You're just running in place. Not good. You want your money to grow for you. Bitcoin can do that. Bitcoin fixes this, right? Government control. One day the government very well might, for the most part. Probably, I'm sure they will create a CBDC or something like that, money where they can control it. And when they control the money, they're going to control you. Bitcoin is freedom because with Bitcoin, they can't control you. They can't tell you, hey, we're going to jam money in a wallet for you. We're going to make you spend it when we want you to, and we're going to tell you where to spend it and how to spend it. That all goes away when you have your assets in Bitcoin. This is why it's so important for you to understand that Bitcoin is freedom. Okay, so here are my recommendations. And there's not many recommendations. First, I want boomers, and if you know any boomers, tell them to tune in, don't tune out. I asked a question on LinkedIn once. I was like, how many folks are tuned into Bitcoin? Everybody's like, we don't want to talk about it. Okay, what do you mean you want to talk about it? It's Bitcoin, let's talk about it. No need to shut people off. So education is important. Read, watch, and listen. I told you, I want people to read what I read, watch what I watch, listen to what I listen to. They can do that on my website, thecryptocurator.com. I post a top article every day, and I post videos and podcasts so that people can read, watch, and listen with me. The next is that they need to get off zero. Listen, I'm not advocating to boomers to go move your whole life savings into Bitcoin today. No, I am not. As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to be incredibly conservative. 1% of your net worth put into Bitcoin today will do you very well. You saw earlier what I said. If people would have bought Bitcoin at the beginning of the year, you're up $7,000. If you're a person who had, at the time, $15,000 and you could have socked it into Bitcoin, right now, you've doubled your money. Where else can you do that? Nowhere. Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. We are at the beginning of another cycle that we should see. If you believe Tim Draper, which I don't believe Tim Draper, he came out again in March of this year and said he thought Bitcoin was going to be at $250,000 in June of this year, missed it. And he says, but he believes that's going to happen before the halving next year in April. Not going to happen. Sorry. I don't see it. I think it's outlandish for somebody to say that. So some is better than none, and more is better than less. This is the message that I want to get over to boomers. You need to get some, get off zero, stack some sats. This is a sat stacking game, right? Because if you can stack sats, remember my show last time I talked about how many sats will set you free, right? So if you're stacking sats and you got 1 million sats and this is a big and a big hypothetical, Bitcoin eventually goes to $100 million of Bitcoin, you got $1 million. You get 10 million, life is looking better. And if you get 100 million Satoshis, you got yourself a Bitcoin. Congratulations to you. So some is better than none and more is better than less. That's my message for you guys today. That's my message for the boomers. Listen, folks, the best way to get in contact with me and follow me is on my website, thecryptocurator.com. If you visit there, you're going to be able to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm back on Twitter, Woobits, and Telegram. You can get access to me there. You'll have the most trending news story of the day. You have a video, podcast, and then you have both of my shows, Bitcoin is Freedom and Bitcoin is Politics. Next week, I'll be back to Bitcoin and politics, talking more about what's going on in Capitol Hill so that you'll be able to know. Before I go, the family that's on Bitcoin Live, powered by quantum economics, is growing immensely. We've got so many shows that, guys, listen, if there's some content that's not being covered, message us, talk to us, let us know what content you want to see. But we cover a wealth of content on all of our shows. So whatever you do, go to YouTube, and you're watching this on YouTube right now, please ring the bell, like, subscribe, and then share this with folks within your networks. The more you share it, the more we can get the word out there, especially to the boomers. We can help them out. So if you've got a boomer in your life, please share this show with them and let them know the Crypto Curator said, get off zero. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks for joining.